All right. So you know how we're always on the lookout for smarter ways to handle, those big milestones in life. Well, today we're going to take a deep dive into something I think is really fascinating. It's this platform called Hard Hat Real Estate.
Oh, yeah.
And and let's face it, I mean, the whole process of buying a home can be so unbelievably complicated.
It really can be.
So anything that claims to make that easier,
Mm.
you know, I'm all ears.
I think that's the big draw here. I mean, what's really intriguing about Hard Hat Real Estate's idea is that it wants to basically streamline everything
Right.
from like step one, when you're first starting to save, all the way to that moment when you finally get your keys.
Yeah.
It's like taking this really fragmented, confusing process
Mhm.
and trying to make it feel way more, cohesive and straightforward.
Exactly. And while Hard Hat Real Estate is still in development,
Mm-hmm.
it's not quite out there yet.
Right.
I think just looking at the ideas behind it, kind of gives us a sneak peek into how technology, could actually revolutionize how we buy homes.
Mm.
Whether you're, actively saving for a down payment right now or just kind of curious about the future of real estate,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to learn here.
Lots to unpack, definitely.
So let's start at the very beginning. I mean, how does this platform even imagine helping people with that, that crucial first step, which is saving money?
Well, the platform's foundation is built around these integrated savings tools.
Okay.
So picture this, right? You're able to create these specific savings accounts
Mm-hmm.
dedicated just for your down payment.
Okay.
And all of this happens right within the Hard Hat Real Estate environment.
Okay, so it's like a focused digital, savings space.
Mhm.
But I mean, how is that really different from just having, a separate savings account at my regular bank?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So while the basic act of saving, putting money aside is the same,
Yeah.
what Hard Hat Real Estate is proposing is to kind of sweeten the deal. They're going to layer on a rewards program that's linked to your progress.
Yeah.
So think about it, like every time you hit a certain savings milestone,
Okay.
you unlock these different benefits.
So rewards for saving.
Exactly.
That's a cool concept.
Yeah.
What kind of rewards are we talking about here?
Well, they're exploring a few possibilities.
Okay.
This could include like reduced fees, when you're actually using the Hard Hat Real Estate platform.
Right.
Maybe even better interest rates on a future mortgage that you get through their network.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And here's a really interesting one. They're also thinking about offering local hospitality benefits.
Like what?
So think discounts at restaurants
Yeah.
or local services, in the area where you're hoping to buy a home.
That's interesting.
The idea seems to be, to give you these tangible little nudges along the way.
Yeah.
There's actually a lot of research in behavioral economics that suggests that these kinds of smaller, more immediate rewards can be surprisingly effective in helping people build those long-term saving habits, as opposed to just, having that far-off goal of a down payment.
Makes sense. It's like you're getting, these small wins to keep you motivated along the way.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say I've been, diligently saving. I've hit some of these milestones, and I'm getting closer to my down payment goal.
Yeah.
What happens next within this whole Hard Hat Real Estate platform?
Well, the next phase they're focusing on is really streamlining the pre-qualification and transaction process.
Okay.
So they're building this digital pre-qualification feature
Mm-hmm.
that would allow you to basically get a real-time assessment of, whether you'd qualify for a mortgage.
All right.
And you could do this right within the platform.
That would definitely take some of the guesswork out of it. Like no more wondering if I'm even close before I start, seriously house hunting.
Exactly. And what's really noteworthy here is that this pre-qualification system,
Yeah.
it's designed to connect with lots of different financial institutions.
Okay.
The aim is to give you a range of mortgage options that are customized just for you, based on your own unique financial situation, and have it all in one place.
Yeah.
This involves setting up these secure data sharing protocols, and having these standardized application processes. So it's like they're trying to create this seamless flow of information
Right.
that right now often requires a lot of manual effort, going back and forth between different lenders.
So instead of filling out a million forms and waiting to hear back from a bunch of banks,
Yeah.
the platform basically acts as this central hub where I can see all my options,
Yeah.
laid out.
Exactly.
That could save a ton of time.
It definitely could. And the efficiency they're going for doesn't stop at pre-qualification.
Oh, why?
Hard Hat Real Estate also wants to let users search for homes
Okay.
and even submit offers digitally all through the platform. And the goal here is to, reduce a lot of that back and forth communication and paperwork
Right.
that can really slow things down during the offer and negotiation stages.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely see how that would be really appealing. That whole part of the process can feel so opaque and like every minute counts.
Absolutely. And by centralizing that whole offer submission and management process,
Yeah.
they're aiming for, faster, more transparent decision making.
Okay.
You can really see how having everything in one place could lead to a much smoother experience for the buyer.
Now, buying a home isn't just about numbers and online forms, right?
No, it's not.
I mean, there's a real human element to it. You need guidance. You need to be able to trust the people you're working with.
Right.
So how does Hard Hat Real Estate kind of factor that in?
That's where their concept of a fiduciary agent network comes into play.
Okay.
So they're envisioning this network of trusted advisors that you can access directly through the platform.
Okay.
And these advisors are there to support buyers throughout the entire home buying journey.
Okay. So these aren't just your typical real estate agents?
Not quite.
What's the significance of that word, fiduciary?
That's a key distinction.
Right.
A fiduciary actually has a legal and ethical obligation to act in their client's best financial interests.
Okay.
So Hard Hat Real Estate wants these agents, whether they're direct employees or carefully vetted partners,
Right.
to really serve as advocates for the buyer.
So someone who's legally bound to put my needs first and help me navigate all the financial complexities and all the tricky language in those contracts.
Oh, precisely. And the idea is that you could connect with these agents and get their guidance seamlessly right within the Hard Hat Real Estate platform.
Okay.
So they're creating this direct link between the digital tools and that personalized human support.
It sounds like they're trying to strike that balance,
Yeah.
Leveraging technology to make things efficient.
Mm-hmm.
But without losing that crucial human touch and, that element of trusted advice.
Yeah.
Even the name Hard Hat Real Estate,
Yeah.
kind of hints at this connection to building and community.
Yeah.
Does their vision go beyond just, helping individuals buy homes?
It does. And this is one of the things that I find particularly interesting about their approach. They're putting a lot of emphasis on community impact and reinvestment.
Okay.
They really seem to understand that a thriving housing market is essential for the health of local communities.
So it's not just about facilitating, individual transactions in a vacuum.
Exactly. Hard Hat Real Estate has made a commitment to actually reinvest in the communities where they operate.
Okay.
This includes, fostering local partnerships and supporting real estate development initiatives.
Yeah.
Their long-term vision is to collaborate with community organizations, local governments, and developers.
Wow.
With the goal of driving economic growth and just, improving the overall quality of life in these areas.
That's really interesting. So how would that reinvestment actually work in practice?
The concept they're talking about is what they call a cycle of trust and mutual benefit.
Okay.
So the idea is that by making homeownership more accessible and, helping individuals succeed in that process,
Yeah.
that success then ripples outward and contributes to the vitality and development of the wider community.
Through those targeted reinvestment efforts and partnerships.
Exactly.
So the platform wants to not only help people buy homes,
Yeah.
but also help, make the neighborhoods they're moving into better places to live.
That's the idea.
And to make all of this happen, to get all these pieces in place, it seems like Hard Hat Real Estate would need to work pretty closely with, existing players in the real estate industry.
Absolutely. They're very much focused on building these strategic partnerships across both the financial and real estate sectors.
Okay.
They've emphasized collaborations with financial institutions, established real estate firms and mortgage providers as being absolutely crucial to their model.
So what's the main motivation behind those partnerships?
The primary goal is to enhance the user experience, by offering benefits that people might not be able to find easily on their own. This could mean things like more competitive mortgage interest rates, access to customized mortgage products that are designed for different needs, and exclusive financial tools that are only available through these collaborations.
Okay.
It's kind of like a network, where each partner, whether it's lenders, real estate firms, they're all integrated into the platform. And this allows for smoother data exchange and potentially, faster, more personalized services for the user.
It sounds like they're creating a really interconnected system. So how does the platform itself, how does it sustain sustain all of this?
Right.
What's their business model?
So they've indicated that their business model has a few key components.
Okay.
One is managing user deposits, the money that people are holding within those savings tools.
Mm-hmm.
Another is generating revenue through referral fees
The-
they earn by connecting users with their partner services.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also commissions from real estate transactions that they facilitate.
Huh.
So the goal is to create this ecosystem,
Yeah.
where both the users and their partner institutions are benefiting from participating.
So taking a step back and looking at all these different pieces together, what would you say is the ultimate objective of Hard Hat Real Estate? What are they really trying to achieve?
Their central goal, as they've articulated it, is to democratize homeownership.
Okay.
They want to make it a more attainable goal for a wider range of people, regardless of, where they stand financially right now.
Right.
They see their platform as a way to simplify what can often feel like an incredibly overwhelming and complicated process.
Yeah.
And they want to offer people a clear step-by-step pathway
Yeah.
from that initial saving all the way to finally owning a home.
It really does sound like that combination of, digital efficiency and that personalized fiduciary support is really at the heart of their approach.
It is. They're really operating on the principle that, by combining the transparency and speed of technology with the trustworthy guidance of human experts, they can effectively lower a lot of the traditional barriers that prevent people from achieving their homeownership dreams.
Okay.
And they've also emphasized that this isn't meant to be a static solution.
Right.
They intend for the platform to adapt and evolve, based on feedback from users.
Yeah.
And the ever-changing dynamics of the real estate market.
So we've taken a pretty comprehensive look at what Hard Hat Real Estate is proposing.
Yeah, we have.
It's clear they're trying to tackle some of the biggest pain points in the current home buying experience.
Absolutely. And even though it's still in development, the underlying concepts that they're exploring,
Yeah.
I think they offer some really valuable insights into where the real estate industry might be headed.
Right.
This whole idea of integrating all these traditionally separate stages into a single cohesive platform, it could really streamline a very complex journey.
So as you've been listening to all this, thinking about these savings tools, the digital transaction process, the role of those fiduciary agents, the community reinvestment aspect, what stands out to you as the most potentially transformative element,
Wow, that's a great question.
And for you, our listener, as you've been listening, thinking about these integrated approaches, what are some of the biggest hurdles you've either faced personally or you anticipate facing in the home buying process?
Right.
How might a unified platform like Hard Hat Real Estate address those specific challenges for you?
Yeah.
And thinking even bigger, what are the broader implications of these kinds of platforms for the future of our communities and for just the overall accessibility of homeownership? I mean, it's definitely a lot to consider.
It is a lot to consider.
Lots to think about.
Yeah, definitely food for thought.
Food for thought, for sure. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive
It's been a pleasure.
into Hard Hat Real Estate.
Really interesting stuff.
As always, we appreciate you listening, and we'll catch you next time.
See you next time.
Take care.